Hello dear tea friends from around the world, and welcome to a new tea class with me, Stéphane Erler, from the Tea Masters blog and of the tea-masters.com boutique. And please give me thumbs up on Facebook or on YouTube if you watch me live or on replay, and I hope that this will be an interesting class. Today we are going to discuss, it's a bit of a continuation of my class about tea in winter that you can see a couple of weeks ago, and how to adapt tea to this particular season, and with a discovery, big discovery I made this week again after a couple of errors, as it happens to the best. You always learn, and actually it's really a very basic lesson that I'm keeping telling people, and I forgot it also. It's a human nature. So it's always interesting to reinforce the basics, and this is again a lesson back to the basics, and because it's actually a very basic point, so easy to comprehend, I'm adding a twist. I'm going to add a little bit of view on inflation, since we are talking about quality, and nowadays there's a lot of inflation going on in the world. So I also wanted to give you a bit my view and my thoughts on the subject, because finance is the subject actually I studied before entering the field of tea, and maybe I have a couple of things that will interest you about it. So let's start with the point I want to make. When you brew tea in winter, it's a bit different than when you are in spring or summer, when outside is very hot, and you feel light and you have lots of new teas that come. In summer, you look for freshness, you look for something very airy, for something that is that cools you and that does not make your body too warm, but that is very fragrant, and therefore we tend to brew our teas in a lighter way. We also tend to go towards more fresher teas, green teas, high mountain oolong. But in winter, when it's cold outside, and when maybe you don't have, with inflation and the gas price is high, you don't put the heating at the maximum, so even at home it feels a bit cold. So you're turning towards different teas that are more roasted, are more oxidized, or even are more fermented, like pu'er, and these more warming teas, there's a different way to brew them. Instead of focusing on their smells, what you want is really to focus on the taste and aftertaste and the body impact, because when you drink such teas, the body impact is going to be warming, and therefore it's quite what you want, quite what you need in this season. And the way to get to more of this taste and warming feeling is, of course, to have a stronger tea. Now, how do we achieve a stronger tea? There are two ways. Actually, there are several ways. One is that using Yixing teapot is going to help compared to porcelain, because with an Yixing teapot you are able to keep the heat at a higher level inside the teapot, and therefore you are getting more of these tastes out of the leaves. Then preheating is going to be important, because the higher the temperature, the more you are getting out of the leaves again. And finally, you to get these the aftertaste, instead of focusing on the smells, you want longer brews. The longer a tea brews, the heavier the compounds come out of the leaves, and it's these heavier compounds that give you this warmer feeling, whereas the first aromas that come out from the leaves are more about the smell. So when in winter we really want to brew more concentrated, and therefore we're going to brew longer. Now, should we brew also with more leaves or with fewer leaves, or with the same amount of leaves, since we are going to brew longer? Now, this depends on the quality of the leaves in great respect, and that's why this is a point that is very important. The fewer leaves you are using for a session, the more expensive leaf you can afford. This is of course a very common sense, but maybe it's something that we tend to forget, and therefore it's quite important to think of this point, and because the amount of tea that we are drinking in one day is limited. Maybe we drink 1 liter of tea, 5-7 brews out of a teapot. That would be 1 liter, for instance. So if you are using, so that will be your what we are willing to spend every day. Now, if you are using 10 grams, or if you are using 5 grams, or if you are using 2.5 grams, of course, then your what you can spend on the leaves will be very different. If you are using 10 grams, then you well, our budgets are always limited. Maybe you think, okay, 2% of your budget is for tea, then you turn this 2% in and you divide it by 10 grams, then your price per leaf will be quite low. But if you are using 5 grams or 2.5, then you can double or quadruple your amount per leaves, and it will be better. But actually, in the other way around, what is interesting is that if you are using higher quality leaves, you can actually get a better results with fewer leaves, because for me, what is really a quality tea is a tea that can be brewed for a long time and without becoming bad. And therefore, if you are focusing on this kind of leaves, you are able to afford better leaves, because you are going to use fewer leaves. I hope the explanation is simple. So let's brew some, and we can continue to talk about it. Hopla. So the mistake I made was, because I was feeling a bit cold this week, I wanted to make tea a bit stronger, so I added more leaves, and actually the tea felt very strong, but it felt overbrewed. The details of the that I would get from my aromas were missing, and then I had to brew my tea with shorter brews to compensate for the fact that I had used too many leaves, and all of a sudden I did not get the really the effect that I wanted in terms of warmth. The tea was fragrant enough, but did not have this long aftertaste that I was looking for. Now I'm going to use my infrared roasted Alishan oolong from, actually it's a roasted oolong, infrared roasted, from Alishan, I think 2017 winter. A very fruity scent and very dark leaves. Okay, can I finish? Yes. Remember, this teapot is for 4 cups. Let me get the water to a boil. I'm making some tea, and then we can continue with our discussion. So, really, the quest for quality leaves actually helps us to use fewer leaves and therefore to be able to afford also better quality leaves, better tea, because these teas are also more suitable for longer brews. So it's we're actually in a win-win situation. It's a good good circle. So I'm filling just the bottom of my teapot, and my water is almost ready. You can smell it. The smells are more intense in the hot teapot. I'm not waiting too long, otherwise the temperature would cool down and then I would get less out. I don't go to the very top, and I'm not pouring any boiling water on the teapot. For roasted teas, it's not. I don't advise it. It's not going to make your tea better. Actually, it's going to make it a little bit less precise. And now we can wait. Therefore, as I was saying, this is a method for making the tea in winter, and the best method then here now to get a long aftertaste is to have a long brew, especially on the first brew where the leaves are rolled quite tightly. They need also a bit more time to open up. So I wanted to use this class to discuss a bit the concept of inflation right now, and use tea a bit as an example of what it means, how are the effects of inflation on tea. Now, a very disturbing thought, maybe first from a very general point of view. What is inflation? Some people say it's prices that rise, but actually this is only the after effect. From a financial point of view, inflation is always a monetary question of printing too much money or printing a lot of money, and actually it's quite easy to understand. If let's say if you are in a system that produces 100 units of value, let's say 100 units of bread or 100 units of or 100 units of tea, packs of tea maybe. If in this system the printed money that is available is 100, then very logically the prices for each pack are going to become 1. However, if the money that is available, the printed units are 1000, then it's going to be closer to 10, etc., etc. So a price is always relative and depends very much on how much monetary new units are available to the players, to the buyers for the exchange. So when there is inflation, prices are going high. It's because the money that is available, the paper money that is available, is growing faster than the units of value that are being produced. If you are, you can double, a bank can, or the central bank can easily double the money it prints, and that circulates in the country, but the amount of goods that are produced in the country does not double so quickly. So if we are in the current situation and you look at the Fed balance sheet, where the economy grows at a more stable rate, but the money that is issued in the economy and flowing into the economy is almost doubled, then of course prices are going to reflect the fact that there's much more money going around. Very nice. Not only is it fragrant, but it has this depth of taste and this roundness, this thick feeling, without feeling how do you say, not clear. What I really like here is I both have this thick feeling and I have a very pure feeling at the same time. It does not feel like a concert when you don't hear the details of the music because it's too loud. It does not feel too loud at all. It feels rich and still very clear and very pure. So this is really the concept of quality, what we are looking for in tea. Now let's go back a bit to tea and inflation and tea and prices. Now we can see lots of price fluctuations between different teas. Very often it's due to the fact that for instance, for a long time people in Taiwan produced tea in lower altitude and people were happy about it. A lot of tea was produced actually around Taipei and brought to Danshui and later Geelong for export to Hong Kong and from there to the US and to Europe. And so these teas were made in lower elevation. They were actually competing with teas from Fujian. Taiwan had lower taxes because farther away from the central government in China. So this was why Taiwan developed very quickly in the 19th century, thanks to lower taxes, and this economy is based on tea and a couple of other products. because it was able to compete thanks to tea in lower altitudes that were easy to harvest, and there was a lot of immigration from Fujian. A lot of workers were willing to work for not so much money, and so it was competitive, and for a long time it worked pretty well, until maybe the world became more affluent, and especially Taiwanese also became more affluent in the 80s, and they started to like high mountain oolong better than the teas from the lower elevations, and all of us, and so one of the reasons now high mountain oolong is more expensive than tea from Songboling, Mingjian, which is now the biggest area of tea production in Taiwan in the lower elevation. And higher mountain oolong is more expensive because it is more difficult to harvest. You cannot harvest it by machines. Now machines have replaced a lot of people that were used before. The land is more difficult to manage. On the slopes, you have to work more, to invest more, to be able to plant these trees in the mountains compared to the lower elevation where it's more flat. So all this increased the cost and therefore the price, and this actually reflected the fact that people got more affluent and also liked this kind of tea better than in the lower elevations. So here you have, you would say, a price increase which is really due to quality and to cost, because it is more difficult and costs more to produce these teas in high altitudes, and the fact that people now turn more to these teas is because they've become more affluent, and also because there is more productivity in the world in general. And we can see this in the tea industry. So in the lower elevation, it used to be very expensive to produce, but thanks to mechanization and machine harvesting, it became less and less expensive. So with your salary, you could buy more and more of such teas. Of course, you only need a certain amount of tea per day that you can consume. So once you have really a certain budget, and you can see, oh, actually I only buy let's say 100 gram, and actually now you could buy 200 gram of such tea, but you still only drink 100 gram. So that's where there was this opportunity for higher grade teas, like from the high mountains, that cost more, but because you are more affluent, you can now afford it. And therefore there are these two tendencies in tea. One is that mechanization productivity brings the prices down, and on the other hand, maybe more complex production is going to make the prices higher. And there is something else that makes the prices higher. This is important nowadays, is of course limited supplies. When tea from a certain region becomes really very famous, then of course that region will try to produce more to face demand, but up to a point, there comes a time when they are not able to produce more, and therefore, as long as there is this certificate of origin that buyers can get, they will be more and more willing to pay higher prices because they understand that the supply is limited, but demand is getting higher and higher, stronger and stronger. But this can only go to a certain point, and therefore there are always copies, imitations of this famous tea that are going to start being produced in other regions or in the neighboring regions, to be able to help to face this growing demand for these teas. And that's why there is so this is a way to balance a little bit the higher prices on tea, is that when in a certain region you have they have exhausted their possibility to increase the supply, other regions are picking over and producing similar teas to help keep the prices at a similar level. Just this means that for the original regions that people really value the most, or that are a bit more remarkable, let's say like Daoling in Taiwan, it's the highest tea mountain or the highest tea gardens in Taiwan. These are really in very limited supply. Even a couple of years ago, they started to destroy some of the tea plantations there, and therefore the prices in such limited supply regions are going higher and higher. So this is the case for Daoling. This is also the case for Yancha in Hui. And this is also the case for the most famous regions in Yunnan for pu'er, like Yiwu or Bingdao, or the Laobanzang also. And other regions are going to be explored to find similarities and try to find something that can be a little bit kind of a replacement for such teas. That's where I'm thinking of my 2017, 18 and 19 Jiangcheng pu'er, for instance. So in tea, there are these two, there are several factors. Some increase of wealth make people try to purchase higher quality teas. You have the fact that mechanization, productivity helps to lower down the prices. Also, when prices get too high, tea entrepreneurs are going to different regions to find teas at a lower price. But at the end, the real inflation is monetary, and it's when the central banks print too much money. And therefore, my advice to be able to get a best cup of tea is to reduce the amount of leaves that you use, and by focusing on quality leaves, and by using a lower amount of leaves for your best tea moments in the day, then you are also able to increase the quality that you can afford and get therefore an even better cup of tea. Okay, I hope that this was interesting for you. Thank you very much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up, and I see you maybe in 2 or 3 weeks after the Chinese New Year for another tea class with me, Stéphane Erler. Bye bye.